Pregnant wife, gave birth and millionaire. Filed for divorce. What she did next left everyone speechless. The contraction that finally split the night in two arrived with a wet, tearing sound and the smell of antiseptic. "One more push, Lena," said the nurse, voice steady over the monitor's metronome. In the hallway, cameras blinked red. Security, not paparazzi. But Lena still felt watched, as if the city itself leaned over the hospital bed to see whether a poor girl who married a millionaire could carry grace through pain. She did. Isla wailed into the world, furious and alive. And before they cut the cord, a man in a grey suit appeared in the doorway holding a leather folder. "Mrs. Ashford?" he said. "You've been served." The man with the folder waited just inside the threshold, as if good manners were a life raft that would keep him from drowning in shame. Lena couldn't reach for anything even if she'd wanted to. Her arms shook from the labor, and the world was soft-edged, blurred by exhaustion and the narcotic warmth of immediate love. She had time to register her daughter's mouth, tiny bow, furious, before the nurse, Maya, stepped between the man and the bed. "Not now," Maya said. "Absolutely not." "It's urgent," the man said, "per Mr. Ashford's counsel." The room chilled. Graham, her husband, the man who had kissed the inside of her wrist when the first contraction hit, who'd whispered, "It's us, Elle. It's our whole life starting now." But he wasn't in the room. He had left just before the pushing began, his phone a lit rectangle against his jaw, one finger lifted. "Wait," Maya looked at Lena. "Do you want me to call security?" Lena swallowed. The epidural had worn thin by the end. She felt everything. She nodded. "No," then shook her head. "Yes," then finally managed to say, "Let me see." The man came closer, staying clear of the bassinet where Isla had quieted into a skeptical mule. He showed her the first page. Petition for dissolution of marriage. "On what grounds?" Lena heard herself ask. The voice was scraped, unfamiliar. The man didn't meet her eyes. Irreconcilable differences. It would take 24 hours for the rumor to travel through Seattle's wealthy enclaves and into the debating halls of the internet. The Ashford's baby wasn't his. That an NDA-bound lab had already tested amniotic fluid and found inconsistencies. That the fitness instructor who came 3 days a week had, allegedly, stopped coming precisely 9 months earlier. The story was a quick thing that moved faster than the truth. It rented rooms in other people's mouths. Lena looked at her daughter. She looked at the nurse who had stayed when the obstetrician rotated out, who had tucked a washcloth beneath Lena's shoulder with the kind of gentleness that made it impossible to speak. "Leave the papers," she said. "Then leave." He did. The nurse closed the door. For a long minute there was only Isla's small breath and the soft ticking of the infusion pump. Maya said very quietly, "I'm sorry." Lena blinked. "I'm not," and it shocked her to realize it was true. She wasn't sorry. Not yet. She was other things. Hollowed out, raw, floating at the edge of a cliff. But beneath the new white pain was something granite hard. If Graham believed that a child with her mother's eyes and his father's mouth was a stranger, the loss was not hers. "Do you want me to call anyone?" Maya asked. "My friend," Lena said. "Priya." She paused. "And Ana Velasquez. She's a lawyer." Maya nodded. "I'll make the calls. For now, let's get Isla to your chest." Skin to skin. Warmth and weight. Lena felt her own heart and the quick bud-thud of the babies, and realized that so many promises were going to be broken in the next 24 hours. She pressed her lips to Isla's temple. "Hi, love," she whispered. "It's us, no matter what." For 2 years before the hospital, Lena had lived in a glass house in Medina, a short bridge from Seattle, but a world away. The Ashford place had a dock and a boathouse and a garden that obeyed. In the early mornings, the fog lifted off Lake Washington like steam from a teacup, and Lena would wrap herself in a sweater and carry her tea through rooms that echoed until her footsteps felt like someone else's. She had met Graham in a downtown coffee shop where she'd been freelancing remotely for a boutique design firm. He had asked her opinion on a pitch deck slide while waiting for his macchiato. "The typography is all bravado," she'd said, "but the numbers are shy." He'd laughed. He'd listened. Graham Ashford, at 29, had been the kind of man cities bend around, founder of a payment startup called Helix, a unicorn in year 3, the son of a former senator whose face appeared on invitations to museum galas and hospital wing openings. He wore the non-uniform uniform, black denim, white shirt. This isn't a suit jacket. He had a way of speaking softly that convinced people to lean in. He was also someone's son, Victoria's. She liked Lena on sight, liked her quiet, her thrift store sweater, the way she could talk about interface design like a poem. "You're a surprise," Victoria said at their second dinner. It wasn't exactly a compliment. They were married on an autumn Sunday at a winery in Woodinville, the vines cheered into color by a late summer that didn't want to end. The prenup was a folder on the table between them for exactly 9 minutes, open and then closed. "It's standard," Graham said. Helix's board had notes. The trust had a lawyer with a face like an ammonite fossil. "It's protection." He squeezed her hand. Lena had not needed protection from money. She had needed protection from loneliness. She signed. They tried for a baby. Then the trying became medicine. After a year, the math of it, the injections, the cantilevered hope, tilted the ground. On a night when she couldn't sleep, Lena sat on the dock and watched the lake until it stopped pretending to be a mirror. Graham joined her and rested his chin on her shoulder. "This is us," he said. "The rest is noise." When she finally became pregnant, he bought an old cedar rocking chair from a shop in Ballard that smelled like rope and pepper. He told her he'd fixed the loose slat himself, hammer and nail, as if he could join their future together by force of will. The first small fracture arrived very quietly. In her 8th month, Lena found a text message on her phone that she'd never sent. "Can't stop thinking about last night." It was to a number she didn't recognize. She assumed it was spam until Graham came home early and asked, in a voice that tried to be careful and wasn't, if there was anything she wanted to tell him. She laughed, then saw that he wasn't laughing. "What number?" she asked. He showed her. Her hands began to shake. Someone had been inside her phone. The home cameras showed a tech from a vendor Riley, Helix's COO and Graham's oldest friend, had recommended coming in to fix the firewall. "It's nothing," she said. "It's obviously nothing." He looked at her like she had become an equation he didn't know how to solve. "I want to believe you." "You don't?" He didn't answer. From there, suspicion crept into the house like weather. The prenatal appointments had a new script. Graham asked about timelines. Once he asked whether feeling the baby kick could be psychosomatic. When her water broke on a rainy Tuesday in September, he found the bag, grabbed the keys, drove her to Swedish First Hill, held her hand between contractions, kissed her palm, then took a call in the hallway that turned each minute into 3. The baby was early. She struggled to breathe. They put her in the NICU for observation. Lena stared at the clear plastic box that held Isla and thought, so this is love. A thread that burns your hands and you hold on anyway. And then the leather folder in the doorway. And then the space beside her bed where her husband wasn't. Priya arrived with a bag of food, so fragrant even the nurses paused. She'd brought dal and rice and mango pickle in jam jars. She was 5 feet tall and all spine, an engineer at a biotech company across the lake, and the first friend Lena had made when she moved to Seattle for graduate school. "You're going to eat if I have to spoon it in," Priya said, setting containers on the tray. Then she saw the papers, and all the air went out of her. "Oh, Lena, I feel awake," Lena said, surprised to discover it. Like the part of me that was asleep finally decided to help. Priya nodded once. "Good. Keep her close." She meant the baby, who lifted a hand, then set it down again as if deciding, yes, this world would do. Ana Velasquez called an hour later and arrived before midnight. Dark hair in a low knot, flats in hand like she had run down hospital hallways before. She was a family lawyer who had made partner at 35 and a reputation a year later by shredding a tech mogul's performative charm to confetti. She glanced at the petition. "They served you in recovery? Before they cut the cord," Lena said. Anna's eyebrows lifted by a degree. "We'll use that." She looked at the pages again. "There's a reference here to pending verification of parentage. Where did that come from?" "An NDA-bound lab, apparently," Priya said, mouth sharp with disdain. Anna's eyes flicked to Lena. "Did you authorize a test?" "No." "Then they have nothing admissible, and even if you had, chain of custody is everything." She turned to Priya. "Can you stay with her the next 48 hours?" "I'm not leaving unless they sedate me," Priya said. "Good." Anna lowered her voice. "Lena, I'll file a response, an emergency motion for temporary support and access. They'll argue the prenup limits you. It does not limit Isla. The court cares about the child. Also," she hesitated, "I know you may not want to hear this, but a court-ordered paternity test might clear the air." Lena felt a flash of anger. How could the air be cleared when it had never been dirty? Then recognized Anna's pragmatism as a kind of mercy. "Fine," she said. "Chain of custody like Fort Knox." When Anna left, the room quieted. Nurse Maya came in with fresh water and a smile that held. "NICU says she's doing well. Do you want to try to sleep?" "I'm afraid if I close my eyes, I'll wake up and it'll be real," Lena said. Maya stood at the foot of the bed, weighing something invisible. "Earlier this evening," she said, "a man in a Helix-branded jacket asked at the nurse's station how the paternity tests at this hospital are handled." Lena's skin prickled. "What did you tell him?" "That we don't do paternity testing in the labor ward." Maya shrugged. "He wasn't a relative. He was curious." "Did he give his name?" "No, but he had a badge clipped to his pocket. R. Baines. Riley." A numbness moved through Lena like anesthesia washing back in. She watched the monitor reflect her heart. Quick, then calmer. "Thank you," she said, "for telling me." Maya's mouth softened. "We have rules. Some are written, some are mine." She patted the bed. "She's yours. That's the first rule." At 3 a.m., Lena fell asleep and dreamed that the dock in Medina became a road that went somewhere she couldn't yet see. When she woke, there was light at the edges of the blinds like a promise carefully worded. Graham did not come to the hospital the next day. A bouquet did, an expensively tasteful collection of white peonies in a vase that looked like a sculpture. There was a card. For Isla. No signature. The florist name gave it away. Victoria liked that florist. Priya recorded everything. Who came, who didn't, who called. Anna filed motions like arrows. The media did not know, not yet. The hospital had protocols that contained reality to the walls. In the NICU, Lena sat in a chair that had been designed by someone who understood pain and watched her daughter fight sleep. On the third day, Anna returned with a folder. "The court granted the temporary support order," she said, "and the DNA test, with strict chain of custody. If he refuses, it will be noted." "He'll do it," Lena said. And then, because the other part of the sentence tasted like copper, "if he believes he's right." Priya squeezed her arm. "You're not alone." A social worker from the hospital came by with a soft, practiced voice and pamphlets on postpartum support. Lena took them like talismans. She knew that hormones could turn a body into an unreliable narrator. She made deals with herself. Eat 3 times, walk twice, let yourself cry once without embarrassment. On the 4th day, Isla's breathing evened out like a decision. They brought her to Lena's room, the small triumph marked by the NICU's gentle applause, the kind that is mostly eyes lighting up. Maya hugged them both with her whole face. Later, when Priya had stepped out to take a call, Maya lingered. "I said I wouldn't get involved," she began, which is what people say before they get involved, but something else. "There was a courier who tried to deliver a package for you last night." Maya watched Lena closely. "He asked which nurse had been on shift when your amniotic fluid sample was collected." Lena felt the room tilt. "That's not... We didn't... Exactly." Maya's voice sharpened. "Don't sign anything. Don't accept anything. Not without your lawyer." Lena nodded. "Maya, can I..." She hesitated. "Can I ask how you stay... kind?" Maya smiled at some private memory. "I stopped deciding people were one thing. Helps to keep the heart from rusting. When Lena was discharged, Priya drove her to a 2-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill that smelled like fresh paint. It was a friend of a friend's place, sublet furnished. The view was rooftops and a slice of sky that pinked at sunset. Priya set the bassinet in the main bedroom and then stood triumphantly, hands on hips. "You are not going back to Medina until it's safe," she said. "If ever," Lena texted Graham. "We're home. Isla is strong. You can meet her when you're ready." The message bounced from her phone into air. The read receipt stayed grey. That evening, Anna called. Her tone was surgical. "Helix's counsel reached out to propose a settlement contingent on you, agreeing not to speak to the press about the divorce. Is that normal?" Lena asked. "Sure, for people who are afraid of the truth." Silence thrummed. "The paternity test is Saturday morning at 9. I'll be there." After she hung up, Lena stood at the window and watched a man across the street water his ferns with the attention of an artist. The city breathed. Somewhere a recording studio worked on a song about someone else's loss. She felt the impulse to tell a stranger everything, to open her mouth and pour out a life. Instead, she picked up her daughter and said, "We're going to be okay, Isla. We're not delicate. We look delicate. It's a trick." At 9 a.m. on Saturday, the clinic that did legal DNA testing smelled like printer paper. Anna signed into a log that might as well have been a book of spells. The nurse swabbed the inside of Isla's cheek and sealed the swab into a labeled container like they were packing away a small, bright animal. They swabbed Lena, then waited. Graham arrived at 9:23, breathless, baseball cap pulled low, the disguise of a man trying to be smaller than his name. He looked thinner than he had 4 days earlier, like grief had taken an early draft of him and refused to give it back. He didn't look at Lena. He looked at Isla. Something flickered. He smoothed it away. The nurse called his name. He followed her in. Anna set a hand on Lena's sleeve. "Dignity isn't a performance," she whispered. "It's scaffolding. When it was done, when the samples were sealed and the chain of custody signed in 5 places, they stepped into the grey light of a Seattle morning that was trying its best." Graham spoke first. "This isn't personal," he said. Lena's laugh surprised even her. "It's the most personal thing that's ever happened to us. I had to do this." He rubbed a hand over his jaw. "We have to be certain." "We?" Lena said. "Or your board? Or Riley?" He looked up, eyes dark. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make me the enemy." "Graham," she said very quietly. "I didn't need to make you anything." He flinched, then recovered. "Victoria wants to see her." He nodded to Isla. When it sorted, Lena felt the urge to say something generous, to be the bigger person, to play the part women are given when men are drowning in their own choices. Instead, she said, "We'll see." That afternoon, Priya watched Isla while Lena met a private investigator Anna recommended, Rafael Quintero, a former King County detective with silver at his temples and a voice that cared about nouns. He had a tablet, a legal pad, the habit of writing with a fountain pen. "Tell me everything," he said. She did. The texts she hadn't sent, the tech who'd fixed a firewall, the courier, the helix-jacketed man at the nurse's station, Riley's improbable omnipresence, Victoria's curated concern. Raphael listened like solutions were a language he could read. "There are 3 pressure points," he said finally. chain of custody for any prenatal material, device access, and motive. He paused. You think the motive is the company. I think the motive is control, Lena said, and the company is the instrument. He nodded, pleased. That's better. 2 days later, Raphael sent a message. Got something. He met her in Anna's office and placed a small flash drive on the table like a relic. Hospital hallway cameras, he said. Your nurse friend was right. Someone sniffing around paternity protocols. A man in a Helix jacket with a badge that reads R. Baines. He speaks to a lab courier outside the elevators. We can't hear the words, but we can see the exchange of a business card. Anna exhaled slowly. This is not proof of anything criminal, but it's a smell. Raphael tucked a second paper into the folder. Also, the firewall vendor, subcontracted to a firm Riley's college roommate owns. There's a record of your phone being cloned for 37 minutes, just enough to send messages. Lena's stomach tightened. Why? Raphael shrugged. He wanted enough smoke to request a prenatal test. If the lab could be influenced or if chain of custody could be muddied, well, Anna finished the thought. Then a wealthy man with a lot to lose could convince himself of what he was already afraid of. Lena stared at the table. Can we prove it? Maybe, Raphael said. And maybe we don't need to. Sometimes you win by telling the story the right way to the right people at the right time. What story? Lena asked. Raphael smiled, brief and precise. The true one. Helix's headquarters occupied a converted warehouse near Pioneer Square. The boardroom had floor-to-ceiling windows and a table that looked like a ship. The day of the board meeting, fog pressed itself against the glass. On the agenda, a vote on a new line of credit, a public filing, the elevation of one R. Baines to president in advance of an IPO. Lena was not invited. She came anyway. She had one share, gifted by Graham on their first anniversary, a gesture that had made her feel like a person whose name could live in footnotes. It gave her the right to attend and to be ignored. She wore a dark dress, flats, hair back. She could have been a junior associate sent to take notes. Except she was carrying a folder, and in the folder was the chain of custody log from the clinic, and Raphael's compilation of tapes and subcontractor invoices, and a statement from Nurse Meyer, typed carefully in her own words. A man in a Helix jacket asked how paternity tests were handled. I said, we don't do that here. He asked about amniotic fluid. I said he should talk to the lab. I recorded the time. The receptionist blinked when Lena introduced herself. I'm here for the board meeting. Are you? A shareholder, Lena said gently. Here's my proxy. They let her in. The room smelled like lemon oil and too much money. Graham looked up, startled. He hid it. Riley didn't bother to hide his displeasure. It settled on his face like a mask. Victoria, sitting near the end of the table, crossed her legs with the same grace she'd used to host governors. Her eyes softened by a fraction when she saw Lena. It might have been an apology, or a memory. The meeting began as meetings do, minutes, motions, votes that felt inevitable. Lena waited until the chair asked if there was any new business. Yes, Lena said. Her voice was steady. I have something to enter into the record. Graham tensed. This isn't appropriate. It's entirely appropriate, said a man at the far end of the table, a director who had founded a national grocery chain and knew about messes. Let the shareholder speak. Lena stepped forward and placed the folder in front of the corporate secretary. I believe my husband, she didn't look at Graham, filed for divorce on the basis of a rumor supported by a compromised process. I believe the rumor was encouraged by a person in this room. I believe the person who encouraged it did so to consolidate power in advance of an IPO. Riley laughed, a little high. This is defamatory. What's defamatory? Lena said. Is telling a mother her daughter isn't her husband's because you misused a lab you had no business contacting. Victoria exhaled, low. Graham stood. Lena. She faced him. In the quiet of her body, something she hadn't had time to name settled into place. She didn't want revenge. She wanted the truth out where it could breathe. These, she said, indicating the documents, are records and statements that show someone associated with Helix tried to inquire about prenatal samples and chain of custody at the hospital where I delivered. These are invoices that show Helix paid a vendor who cloned my phone the week a series of incriminating texts were sent from it. She paused. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a cop, but I'm a mother, and I know hunger when I see it. Someone wanted to eat everything. Silence. The board chair cleared his throat. We will review these materials and respond appropriately. You'll want to do it fast, Lena said, softer now. Because if you don't, I will. Not for my sake. I'll be fine. But for her. She nodded to the small photo tucked into the folder's pocket, a snapshot Priya had taken of Isla asleep, mouth open, fists determined. She deserves a world where truth isn't something men with badges decide matters or not. Lena left the folder. She left the room. In the elevator, she allowed herself to shake. In the lobby, she leaned against a column and laughed once, the sound surprised from her. When she stepped onto the sidewalk, she felt 10 pounds lighter. Her phone buzzed. A text from Anna. DNA results are in. Call me. They met at Anna's office because bad news, even when it isn't yours, sounds better when it bounces off law books. Anna closed the door and sat. 99.99% probability, she said. Graham is the biological father. Lena blew out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Okay. Anna watched her. You're allowed to smile. Lena did. Small and fierce. It felt like stepping into sunlight after weeks indoors. What now? We file the result, Anna said. We demand an immediate withdrawal of the petition under the stated grounds, and we update the temporary orders for access and support. If they refuse, we request sanctions. The door cracked open. Priya slid in with coffee like a rescue boat. Tell me we're winning. We're winning, Anna said. Lena nodded, then frowned. I don't want money. Priya blinked. What? I know we need practicalities. Diapers don't pay for themselves. But I don't want to be paid for paying a roomer rented in my house. I want... Lena trailed off. The shape of it came into focus as she spoke. I want to tell the truth. And then I want to build something. Build what? Anna asked, wary and interested. A fund, Lena said. For NICU families. For women who get served at the worst moment of their lives. For people who can't hire Ana Velasquez and Rafael Quintero and who don't have a Priya to make dal at midnight. Priya's eyes watered. That's very you, she said. Annoyingly good, but yes, Anna considered. Strategically, declining spousal support and asking that funds be directed to a foundation in your child's name would land like thunder. It's the opposite of the story they're telling. Exactly, Lena said. I don't want to own him. I want to own my choices. That afternoon, the board of Helix announced the postponement of the vote to elevate Riley. A terse statement cited, new information requiring review. The market shrugged, then tilted, then righted itself. In Medina, Victoria called and left a message on Lena's phone. Come to the house, please. Her voice was tired in a way that admitted a lifetime of pretending not to be. Lena went. The house was the same. Glass, lake, furniture that had never quite surrendered to the idea of being used. Victoria met her at the door, hugged her, then pulled back with a surprising kind of self-consciousness. I was cruel, Victoria said without preamble. I told myself I was being prudent, but I was cruel. Lena had never seen her like this. Unvarnished, shoulders not arranged for a photograph. Why? Lena asked softly. Why did you believe the worst? Victoria looked out at the lake, the horizon a hard line against sky. Because I hated the feeling of not being needed. Because you made my son soft in ways I didn't recognize. And then I confused softness with danger. She shook her head. Because Riley has always known how to speak to men like Graham, and I mistook fluency for truth. Graham? Lena asked. In his office, Victoria said. He hasn't slept. They found him with the curtains closed and the chair turned to face the glass, as if darkness could help him see. He stood when they entered, then sat again as if his legs had decided they had done enough. I saw the board, he said, his voice a scrape of rock. I saw what you brought. I didn't know about the phone. I didn't know about the hospital. He pushed a hand through his hair. I thought I was protecting us. You set us on fire, Lena said, not unkindly. He swallowed. The test, I got the call. I did too, Lena said. I'm sorry, he said. The words were awkward in his mouth, as if they'd been learned too late. I am so... He stopped, revised. I did this. I let fear drive. I let people around me hold the wheel. I would like... He exhaled. I would like to tell the truth publicly. Lena nodded. Good. And I would like to try to... He stopped again, this time with something like a sense of grace. No, I would like to co-parent Isla in a way that makes her proud of both of us. That starts with telling the truth. Lena stood there, watching a man who had always known how to sell a future practice stating a present. It looked like honesty. It looked like a first draft of a different life for both of them. Okay, she said. Here's what you're going to do. The press conference was held in a small room at a downtown hotel whose ballrooms had hosted victories and admission of losses for a century. The podium was plain. The backdrop was a drape that didn't try too hard. Cameras lined the back like city birds. People expected fury. People expected fire. Lena walked out in a blue dress the color of good sky. She didn't bring Isla. The baby slept somewhere safe with Priya and a playlist Maya had made. But she carried a photograph. Graham stood to the side, hands clasped, not performing contrition, just standing like a man who had learned the weight of his own hands. Victoria sat in the second row. Anna stood near a pillar like an anchor with good hair. Raphael leaned against the back wall, invisible to everyone who didn't know what to look for. Lena adjusted the microphone. The room hushed. My name is Lena Morales Ashford, she said. 4 days ago I had a baby. Her name is Isla. She is small and very loud. The day she was born, a stranger delivered divorce papers to my hospital room because rumors about her paternity had been seeded, watered, and harvested. She paused. She did not look at Graham. Today I want to tell you 3 things. First, my daughter is my husband's child. It is 99.99% certain and 100% true. Second, the rumor was not an accident. There is evidence that people with access to my home and to my devices tampered with them and attempted to influence hospital protocols. The appropriate reviews are underway. Third, I am not here to crucify anyone. I am here to show you what a woman can do when she refuses to let fear have the steering wheel. A murmur, a cough. The cameras were very still. I am not seeking alimony, she said. I am not seeking to punish anyone. I am asking that the amount I would have received be diverted to a foundation that starts today, the Isla Fund. It will pay for rides to hospitals and hotel rooms near NICUs and legal advice for people who need a voice in rooms built to make them feel small. It will be transparent. It will be boring in the way all good things are. And it will be the story we tell our daughter about the day she was born. There it was. The thing that left the room stunned. Not a spectacle. Not vengeance. A decision. Graham stepped to the podium when she finished. He didn't clear his throat. He didn't apologize like an influencer. He said, I believed a false story because it let me escape my own fear. I served my wife papers in a hospital room. I asked a judge to put my suspicions above our daughter's first breath. I was wrong. Lena asked me to tell the truth, so I am telling it. The paternity test is positive. We are withdrawing the petition as filed and recommitting to co-parenting with respect. I will match the Isla Fund's first $10 million from my personal assets. A journalist asked whether Helix was involved. Graham glanced at the board's counsel and said, An internal review is ongoing. Another asked Lena whether she forgave him. Lena considered the question like it was a bird she could not name. Forgiveness is not a tweet, she said. It's a practice. Today I am practicing the part where I choose what to build instead of what to burn. They left the stage to a flutter that wasn't quite applause and wasn't quite shock. In the hallway, Victoria reached for Lena's hand. I will put my name on it too, she said, voice hoarse. The fund. Let me help make it boring. Lena squeezed back. Okay, she said, but no peonies, they're cursed. Victoria laughed, and to her credit didn't cry. That evening, donations began to land like rain, small, then larger, then steady. Nurses sent $20. A retired judge sent $500. An anonymous deposit of $2 million came with a note. For the women served in the wrong rooms. When Priya texted the screenshot, Lena sat on the apartment floor and wept the steady, grateful kind. She had expected to feel triumphant. Instead, she felt repaired. Not fully. Nothing was that easy. But there was a seam where there hadn't been one, and it held. Riley resigned before he could be fired. The press release cited an opportunity to pursue other ventures. The board's internal review became an external investigation. The vendor who had cloned Lena's phone shuttered its website in a hurry. A lab employee lawyered up. The city, which has always loved the smell of scandal when it drifts from the rich, turned its head for a moment and then, as cities do, moved on. Graham started therapy and didn't tweet about it. He began showing up to Priya's apartment every morning at 9 with coffee and a respect that took the shape of silence. He changed diapers. He learned Isla's patterns. He apologized without asking for absolution. He asked to attend the Foundation's first board meeting and sat quietly, taking notes like an intern. When a reporter asked him if he was trying to win his wife back, he said, "No, I am trying to be the kind of father who doesn't make his daughter do that work for him." Victoria invited Maya to lunch and listened to her talk about hospital corridors and accumulated unkindness and the relief of being allowed to decide people weren't one thing. Then she wrote a check with zeros that made the fund's treasurer blink and asked for a volunteer orientation packet. Raphael returned to his small office, closed the file, and because he was a romantic in an unromantic line of work, sent a baby blanket knit by his sister. Anna called the Foundation's accountant twice a week for the first month, and exactly once a week thereafter. The bylaws were short, sensible, and unapologetically dull. Lena moved through days that were all milk and paperwork, and the kind of exhaustion that feels like a watermark. She learned to swaddle and to draft policy. She learned to say, "No comment," and to mean it. She learned to name the thing she was feeling. Not rage, not victory, agency. The divorce? They rewrote it. They didn't pretend the wound wasn't there. They cleaned it properly. After the mandatory waiting period, they filed a new petition together, this time uncontested, styled as a petition for legal separation with parenting plan rather than an immediate dissolution. It gave them room. On a soft October morning, they met at the park near the apartment. The leaves had finally committed to turning. Graham held Isla, who stared at a dog like she had invented the concept. "Do you ever—" Graham began, then restarted. "What will you tell her about us?" "The truth," Lena said. "That we loved each other, and then we hurt each other, and then we tried to make something good out of it. That I didn't abandon myself. That you didn't either. That there were people who helped. That she was worth all of it." She smiled. "That she had a nurse named Maya who made playlists like recipes." He laughed. "And a friend named Priya who threatened anyone who tried to talk to you before coffee. And a lawyer who wore flats like armor. And a grandmother who learned to apologize." They sat for a while, two people who had learned to breathe separately in a world that kept trying to make them share a single lung. When it was time to go, Graham handed Isla back to Lena with care that didn't perform itself. And Lena realized she wasn't waiting for him to fail anymore. She was building, and he was building, and sometimes the buildings would stand on different streets and still be part of the same city. That night, Lena stood at the apartment window and watched Capitol Hill do what it always does. Flirt with rain. Keep the secrets it was never really given. She thought about the dock at Medina and the road it had become in her dream. She thought about the folder on the hospital bed and the way the word served had reshaped itself into something she could use. She thought about opening her phone to find an email from a woman in Ohio who'd written, "He served me in chemo. Today I asked our hospital for a social worker. Your fund will pay for the Uber," they said. I felt not small. "Thank you." Lena pressed Isler's warm weight against her shoulder and whispered, "You are a person who changes the angle of a room." Isler yawned, then made a fist with the seriousness of the very new. Lena laughed softly, and in the laugh, found the sound of herself again. On the mantel, next to the picture of Isla asleep with her mouth open, lay a small piece of paper from the press conference where they'd set out a sign-up clipboard. On it, in Raphael's careful hand, someone had written, "What she did next was boring, which is how you know it was brave." Lena liked that. She liked that very much. And in the deep hours, when the city's neon was a heartbeat at the edge of the blinds and the apartment was a boat on a quiet lake, Lena slept without dreaming of doors opening she couldn't close. If Lena and Isler's story of betrayal, power, and quiet courage stirred something in you, help it travel. Like, share and subscribe so more people find their way to stories that honor complexity and hope. Drop a comment about the moment you felt the shift, from anger to agency, from rumor to truth. If you know someone navigating a hard season, pass this along. Sometimes a story is the first handhold out of a dark place. And if you want more cinematic, grounded narratives like this, where characters choose what to build instead of what to burn, tap the bell so you don't miss the next one. Your engagement helps us keep making work that believes in redemption without pretending it's easy.